Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission here is, well, it's pretty simple. To take complex research and give you the distilled, essential, and sometimes pretty shocking insights you need to understand the hidden forces shaping your world. And today, we're diving deep into maybe the most challenging subject of all, ourselves.
Specifically, we're wrestling with the core findings of Dan Ariely's seminal work, Predictably Irrational, the hidden forces that shape our decisions. The goal here is nothing less than to fundamentally rethink what makes us and, the people around us tick.
The title itself, Predictably Irrational.
Yeah.
That's the key challenge right there. For decades, the standard assumption in, boardrooms, classrooms, policy halls has been that humans are rational actors. Sure, we mess up sometimes, but those mistakes are supposed to be random just noise in an otherwise efficient system. Ariely argues that this foundational belief is, well, profoundly wrong.
It's completely wrong. Absolutely. The core finding that anchors this entire deep dive is that humans not only make astonishingly simple mistakes every single day, like consistently overpaying for things we don't need, underestimating how long things will take, and procrastinating until, disaster strikes. But we make the same types of mistakes over and over again. Our errors aren't random, they are systematic, they are predictable.
We are reliably irrational.
That's the phrase. And this systematic approach to our flawed decision-making is the very heart of the discipline we now call behavioral economics.
Or as researchers sometimes call it, JDM, judgment and decision-making.
Right, and this entire field really began as a direct academic critique of what came before it.
Standard economics.
Exactly. Conventional economics operates on a profoundly naive psychological assumption. They rely on this mythical creature known as Homo economicus.
The purely rational human.
The purely rational human being. This individual is assumed to be capable of instantaneous, perfect calculation, weighing the value of every single option, and always following the best possible path to maximize their utility.
Right, and if this perfect human ever slips up, the theory just says market forces will quickly correct those minor random errors.
Which, as anyone who has ever tried to stick to a budget or a New Year's resolution knows.
It sounds less like a theory and more like science fiction.
It's a fantasy of human ability. It really is. Behavioral economics shattered that myth by introducing empirical observation. The data shows we are far, far less rational than that model assumes.
But here's the critical distinction, right? Just because we're irrational doesn't mean we're senseless.
Precisely. Our misguided behaviors are systematic, they're consistent, and therefore they're entirely predictable. And this is revolutionary because if we can predict the error,
we can begin to design systems to avoid it, or at least nudge ourselves away from it. And Ariely's personal entry into this world, it's crucial to understanding where these ideas came from. It didn't start in a lab.
No, it stemmed from a tragedy that forced him into this unique observational state. When he was 18, Ariely was in a serious accident, a magnesium flare explosion that left 70% of his body covered in third-degree burns.
Yeah.
He spent 3 years in and out of the hospital, wrapped in bandages, and he had to undergo these incredibly painful daily bandage removal procedures.
And this experience, it essentially put him on the outside looking in on human behavior.
It did. The separation from his normal life, coupled with the pain management decisions made by the nurses, who would, often arbitrarily whip the bandages off fast, believing it caused less long-term trauma, despite the immediate, excruciating pain.
A belief not backed by data, I assume.
Not at all. And it forced him to observe daily activities, his own coping mechanisms, the motivations of the staff, the behavior of other patients, as if he were an outsider, an anthropologist. He started questioning what truly motivates us, especially when it comes to pain, pleasure, and planning.
That kind of perspective, born from suffering and intense self-observation, it seems like the perfect crucible for a theory about our cognitive flaws.
It provided the essential insight. The first step toward improving our decision-making, whether for ourselves or for public policy, is recognizing exactly where and how we depart from that rational ideal.
If we can map the errors,
we can start to work with our cognitive faults instead of constantly trying to fight this losing battle against the phantom of perfect rationality.
Okay, let's unpack this with the first major trap Ariely identifies. And it's an inescapable one. The cage of relativity. The concept is so compelling. We don't evaluate things in a vacuum, we always compare. A salary is good only relative to another salary. A house is big only relative to the houses next door.
It's just human nature, and it's why we have that classic anecdote, the Crocodile Dundee scene. Remember that? The street hoodlum pulls a little knife.
And Dundee says, "You call that a knife? This is a knife," and pulls out this massive blade.
Exactly. Our judgment of everything, size, speed, price, desirability, is always relative to the immediate options we have available.
And this innate drive to compare leads directly to one of the most powerful and, frankly, sneaky cognitive traps in marketing: the decoy effect.
It's also called asymmetric dominance, and it happens because our brains hate making difficult choices. We naturally gravitate toward comparing things that are easily comparable.
And we avoid options that are genuinely hard to contrast.
Precisely. The decoy option is introduced not because the seller expects you to buy it. It's there to simplify the comparison between the two main options.
And push you toward the one they want you to pick, the more expensive one.
Usually, yes.
Let's break down the classic example, the one with the economist subscription options. I think they presented this to 100 MIT students.
That's the one. They were given 3 choices. Option 1, an internet-only subscription for $59.
Okay, simple enough.
Option 2, a print-only subscription for $125. Now this is the decoy.
Right. And option 3.
Option 3, a print and internet subscription for also $125.
So the immediate reaction is that option 2, the print only for $125, is just obviously worse than option 3. You'd be a fool to pick it. It's economically dominated.
That's exactly the point. So when all 3 choices were on the table, the results were just wildly skewed. 16 students chose the internet only.
Okay.
0 students chose the print only decoy.
As you'd expect.
But a massive 84 students chose the combined print and internet subscription.
So if nobody chose the decoy, why was it so powerful? What was it even doing there?
Its job wasn't to be chosen. Its job was to simplify the really difficult mental calculation. The hard choice for you as a consumer is comparing $59 of digital value to $125 of digital and physical value. That's abstract.
Right, apples and oranges.
But the decoy made the comparison easy. $125 for print and internet is overwhelmingly, obviously superior to $125 for print only.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. And by establishing that clear, easy win against the decoy, the print and internet option suddenly looked like an obvious, overwhelming advantage compared to everything else on the table.
Okay, so what happened when they took the decoy away?
Well, when they removed that easy comparison point, the choice became genuinely hard again. It was back to apples and oranges. And the percentage of people choosing the bundled, expensive option just plummeted.
And more people went back to the cheaper, internet-only one.
They did.
Yeah.
The decoy, which had 0 intrinsic value to the seller in terms of sales, fundamentally changed the consumer's entire decision-making framework.
That is it's deeply unsettling. To know our choices, from a magazine to, I don't know, even deciding who to date, can be manipulated just by introducing a subtly inferior third option.
Well, you mentioned dating, and Ariely argues you absolutely see it there. He ran a similar experiment. If students had person A and person B who were equally attractive but just different, hard to compare directly, the choice was basically a 50-50 split.
But then you introduce a decoy. Let's call him minus A.
Exactly. Introduce a slightly inferior version of person A. Maybe the photo is a little blurry or the facial features are just subtly less symmetrical. This decoy, this minus A, is clearly worse than A, but it's very easily comparable to A.
And suddenly the perfect person A becomes way more attractive.
75% more likely to be chosen over the equally attractive but now incomparable person B. The brain loves the easy win. It uses that decoy to create a clear hierarchy, and that elevates A in the process.
The implication here is huge. Relativity doesn't just drive our market choices. It drives envy. It drives jealousy. We don't just want to live a good life. We want to live a life that is demonstrably better than our neighbors.
And this is where relativity can make us miserable. We are constantly comparing ourselves to the perfect versions of others we see on social media, or to that one colleague who earns just 5% more. We compare locally and upward, and it leads to dissatisfaction, even if, in absolute terms, our situation is fantastic.
And the most classic example of this, of local comparison just overriding absolute logic, has to be the famous relative $7 save dilemma.
Oh, it's a beautiful illustration of just how irrational this thinking is. You ask a typical person if they would drive 15 minutes across town to save $7 on a $25 pen.
And most people say yes. Of course, $7 is $7. And it feels like a big percentage.
It's 28%. It feels huge. But then you ask that same person if they would drive 15 minutes across town to save $7 on a $455 suit.
And most people say, no way, not worth the trip.
And this is where rationality just completely breaks down. The fundamental question should be, is 15 minutes of your time worth $7? The answer to that should be the same no matter what you're buying.
$7 is $7.
We don't think like that. We compare locally. For the suit, that $7 saving is trivial, maybe 1.5% off the price. So the effort doesn't feel worth the relative advantage. For the pen, the relative advantage looks enormous.
So we end up wasting time and effort chasing small percentages off cheap things while we neglect to save the exact same amount of money on big ticket items because the percentage benefit just looks small.
It's why people will spend an hour claiming coupons to save $5 on groceries, but will then sign up for a car loan that costs them hundreds of dollars more in interest than it should have, because they're anchored on the monthly payment, not the total cost. This local relative judgment is just the flawed, natural way we think. Now, we shift from how we compare options to how we assign value to them in the first place. This brings us into the territory of anchoring and what Ariely calls arbitrary coherence. The idea is that our initial decisions are often completely arbitrary, based on the first price we see, or even a random number. But once we make that decision, it becomes coherent. It sets the value range for all similar decisions that come after.
This sounds almost behavioral, like the concept of imprinting you see in animals.
It's a perfect analogy. You know, Konrad Lorenz found that newly hatched goslings imprint on the first moving object they see, whether it's their mother or a human's boot, and they just follow it loyally.
Because we do the same with prices.
Ariely suggests we imprint on the first price we encounter for a new type of product, and that becomes our anchor. It sets our expectation for what that thing should cost forever after.
And this leads us to what is, for me, one of the most shocking experiments in the book, the MIT Social Security number experiment. This just shows how completely meaningless information can hijack our sense of value.
It's incredible. They gathered a bunch of MIT MBA students, so highly analytical people, right? And they had them participate in an auction. But first, they were asked to write down the last 2 digits of their social security number.
A completely arbitrary number.
Completely. And they were told to think of this number as a hypothetical price in dollars for various products, like a cordless keyboard, a design book, a bottle of wine. Then, right after writing that number down, they were asked for their actual maximum willingness to pay their real bid for those items.
Wait, so they were forced to think about a totally irrelevant number, their SSN, right before making a price valuation. And this actually influenced their bid.
Dramatically. The results were statistically, well, outrageous. The students whose SSN digits were high, say between 80 and 99, that was the high anchor group, they bid an average of $56 for the cordless keyboard.
Okay. And the low group?
The students with SSN digits from 1 to 20, the low anchor group bid only $16.
That's a massive difference. It's more than 3 times higher based on 2 random digits.
And across all the product they tested, the top 20% of SSN digits bid between 216 and 346% higher than the bottom 20%.
Wow.
And here's the kicker. When they were interviewed afterward, the students completely dismissed the idea that the SSN number had any influence on their reasoned price assessment. But the data shows otherwise. That arbitrary, meaningless first number powerfully shaped their willingness to pay.
That means the first price we see for anything, a new phone, a new type of food, even the first salary offer we get for our first job, can just arbitrarily dictate everything that follows in that category. This is huge for salary negotiation.
Oh, absolutely. If you can throw out that first anchor, you frame the entire negotiation. And this anchor dictates our future behavior through a concept Ariely calls self-herding.
Self-herding?
Yeah. Once we make an initial anchored decision, let's say we spend $6 on a small cup of gourmet coffee when we used to pay $1, we start to rely on that past decision to simplify our future choices.
We use our own past actions as a shortcut instead of doing real, effortful analysis every time.
Precisely. Instead of constantly doing a complex cost-benefit analysis, is this $6 coffee really worth it versus the free stuff at the office? We just resort to a simple, low-effort logic.
I went to Starbucks before and paid this much, so it must be a good decision for me to do it again.
Exactly. I must have enjoyed it. We hurt ourselves, we line up consistently behind our own initial, often arbitrary experience. It saves cognitive energy, but it just reinforces an initial irrationality.
And this creates a consistent but fundamentally unexamined pattern of behavior.
We saw this same enduring effect in what they called the annoying sound experiment. Participants were first anchored to either 10 cents or 90 cents as compensation for listening to this really unpleasant sound.
Oh.
Later, they listened to a second, similar sound. Now, even when they were presented with a new, neutral anchor of 50 cents, the original arbitrary anchor still dominated. The 10-cent group demanded only 33 cents for the new sound.
While the 90-cent group must have demanded way more.
It demanded 73 cents.
So the first arbitrary price they heard for annoying noise just stuck. It set the market value for that entire category of negative experience in their minds.
It had an enduring effect on present and future prices. This is what he calls coherent arbitrariness. The initial preference is arbitrary. It's determined by the SSN, or the first noise price. But the resulting system of prices remains internally coherent. If the first experience was high-priced, all subsequent similar experiences have to be high-priced for them to make sense to us.
But this coherence doesn't just stop at prices. It can actually transform the nature of the experience itself. It can change whether we define something as fundamentally good or bad. This is the Tom Sawyer effect.
Right, referencing how Tom Sawyer successfully convinced his friends that whitewashing a fence wasn't a chore, but a rare privilege they should pay him for the honor of doing.
So you're saying Ariely replicated this?
He did, with a poetry reading experiment. He had students listen to a recording of some notoriously bad, ambiguous poetry. Half were anchored to the idea of paying $10 to attend.
Okay.
The other half were anchored to the idea of being paid $10 to listen.
Did that simple framing really change how much they valued the experience?
Dramatically. The ones who were anchored to paying later offered their own money for short, medium, and long readings. They scaled their bids up coherently with the length. They had defined this ambiguous experience as enjoyable, a privilege, play.
And the other group?
The ones anchored to being paid later demanded payment, and they also scaled their demand up with the length of the reading. They defined the exact same experience as onerous, a chore, work.
That's incredible. It shows that marketing, or just that initial arbitrary impression, doesn't just put a price on something. It fundamentally defines our intrinsic perception of its value.
Yeah.
It literally tells us how to feel about it.
And that's a powerful tool, especially when you think about things like public service or even trying to build long-term exercise habits. If you frame exercise initially as a punishment, it becomes work. If you frame it as a fun privilege, it becomes play. And our long-term adherence to it changes completely based on that arbitrary initial anchor.
Moving from the relative to the arbitrary, we now get to maybe the most alluring and consistently manipulative trap in the marketplace. The irresistible pull of free, the cost of zero cost.
Zero is not just another price point. It's an emotional supernova. It triggers this entirely disproportionate reaction in us.
It leads to irrational behavior, like accumulating mountains of worthless free stuff at a trade show, or standing in a ridiculously long line for a free cup of coffee.
Or demanding a free sample of something you didn't even want in the first place.
The famous chocolate experiment just puts this irrationality on full display.
It does. In the first scenario, they offered people a high-quality Lindt truffle for 15 cents and a lower-quality Hershey's Kiss for just 1 cent.
Okay, so under those conditions, people acted rationally.
Completely. 73% chose the truffle, demonstrating that the difference in quality was worth that 14-cent price difference to them.
Rational cost-benefit analysis at work.
Then came the manipulation. They discounted both options by exactly 1 cent. The truffle was now 14 cents, and the kiss was free E.
And standard economic theory would predict, what, no change?
No change at all. The relative price difference, 14 cents, remained precisely the same. But the reaction was anything but standard.
I remember this finding. The reaction was volcanic.
It was. Shoppers overwhelmingly abandoned the truffle. The choice for the truffle dropped to 31%, and 69% of people demanded the free EE. Kiss. People were literally pushing up to the table to grab these kisses.
And completely ignoring the fact that they were opting for a lower quality product just because that magic word was attached.
The zero price effect is a psychological trigger, unlike any other price.
So why? Why does free trigger this total abandonment of rationality, even when the relative cost difference hasn't changed at all?
It's linked very intensely to our intrinsic human fear of loss. That is a massive psychological driver for us. Most transactions carry some kind of risk. If I buy that 14-cent truffle and I don't enjoy it, well, I've wasted 14 cents. It's a small loss, but it's a loss.
But when something is free,
there is no visible downside. There's no possibility of loss or regret. We opt for free to eliminate risk completely. We prioritize risk avoidance over maximizing our utility, regardless of the value we might gain.
it's like the ultimate insurance policy on a transaction.
Exactly, and this fear is so powerful, it creates these irrational decisions. I mean, think about the common retail tactic of buy one, get one free. Consumers often value that free item much more highly than they would have if it had simply been priced at 50% off.
Because the zero cost just obscures the real cost of the bundled purchase. It completely eliminates the risk of disappointment on that second item.
You see this even in products with supposed health benefits, right? The zero-calorie effect.
Pepsi sells better with 0 calories than with 1 calorie.
Right.
Even though the difference is totally insignificant.
Of course, because zero provides this psychological feeling of health perfection. No risk, no downside. 1 calorie, however tiny, fails to match that. And ironically, that feeling of having made the perfect choice on the soda might lead you to rationalize ordering fries later. You feel like you've already earned a health victory.
The implication for public policy is equally profound. It suggests that even small copays or registration fees might be the most efficient way to kill participation in a program.
That's right. If your policy goal is to increase compliance with socially beneficial programs, you have to focus on eliminating the cost entirely, not just decreasing copays.
So, for example, if you want people to get critical preventative health screenings, colonoscopies, mammograms, childhood vaccinations, don't just decrease the copay to $10.
Make them free E. The marginal difference between $10 and $0 is massive in behavioral terms.
Similarly, if the goal is to drive adoption of electric cars, eliminating trivial costs like the annual registration fee might be far more effective than offering a small tax credit.
Because that free incentive hits the emotional button, we need to design policy that acknowledges our irrationality. The rational assumption is that a $500 subsidy is better than eliminating a $50 fee. But behaviorally, making that associated task free E can be a far, far more powerful motivator. Now we can step into a different domain of irrationality. This one is defined by the friction that's created when different social rules collide with each other. It's the collision of norms. Ariely's idea is that we live simultaneously in two worlds, and they're governed by entirely different rule sets: social norms and market norms.
Social norms are those warm, fuzzy, flexible rules. They govern favors, community relationships, helping a neighbor move a couch, and reciprocity is based on goodwill and trust, not immediate payment.
And then market norms are sharp. They're cash-based and transactional. They relate to salaries, prices, rent, and profit. The key is that they operate under clear, defined compensation.
And the infamous scenario that illustrates this collision is, of course, offering to pay your mother-in-law $300 for the wonderful Thanksgiving dinner she cooked.
That act just collapses the sacred social relationship into a cold market exchange, and a failed one at that, because the fee is almost certainly insulting compared to the effort and care she put in. The introduction of money changes the frame entirely.
And it often ruins the relationship, because social norms are fragile, and money is a disruptive agent.
This shift in motivation was demonstrated so powerfully in the lawyer AARP study.
Right.
Researchers approached these highly successful, very well-paid lawyers and asked them if they would offer services to low-income retirees through the AARP for a low market rate, say $30 an hour.
And the lawyers universally refused. They applied market norms and found the offer insulting compared to their standard rates.
But then the study coordinators had an insight.
They pivoted.
They did. They went back and asked the lawyers if they would offer free services, $0, as a voluntary community service.
And the lawyers overwhelmingly said yes.
Overwhelmingly.
So $0 was more attractive than $30, which just completely defies market rationality.
When money was mentioned, even a token amount like $30, the lawyers applied market norms, and the offer was insufficient. When no money was mentioned, they applied social norms, the desire to help the community, the status of being a volunteer, and they were happy to donate their time.
And the crucial lesson here is that once market norms enter our considerations, the social norms just pack up and leave.
And they are very difficult to restore.
This has monumental implications for corporate loyalty and employee motivation. If you want employees to exhibit loyalty, flexibility, a willingness to pitch in, all behaviors that are associated with social benefits, you cannot rely on small monetary rewards.
Right. If a corporation wants social currency, it should use social rewards. A small gift, like a personalized box of chocolates or even just a Snickers bar, is better than its cash equivalent of, say, 50 cents.
Because the gift maintains the social contract. We appreciate you as a person.
But if the corporation makes the fatal error of pricing the gift, saying, here's a 50-cent Snickers bar to thank you for your weekend work, it immediately invokes market norms. The social element dies and the motivation vanishes. You've just defined their extra effort as being worth 50 cents.
It creates this enormous tension. A lot of firms try to maintain a hybrid approach, asking for social flexibility like late hours, but only offering market compensation like salaries. But if they nickel and dime their employees, they destroy the social capital they need for loyalty.
Money, ironically, turns out to be very often the most expensive and least effective way to motivate people when collaboration, creativity, and loyalty are what you're really after.
And this inherent tension between our different normative frames. It leads directly into the struggle for self-control, which is defined by the gap between our different internal states.
So now we move to the internal battle, the struggle for emotional states and self-control. This is defined by the gap between our rational, planning, cold state, Dr. Jekyll, and our highly emotional, impulsive, hot state, Mr. Hyde. And Ariely's research shows we systematically fail to understand ourselves across these two states.
The core issue is that when we are in a cold state, calm, planning a diet, making a budget, we are just terrible at predicting the sheer power of passion or impulse, the hot state, and the degree to which it just completely negates our rational planning.
The sexual arousal experiment conducted on Berkeley male students drove this point home with almost frightening clarity.
Do you walk us through the methodology and the specific staggering findings on that one?
Sure. Students, while they were in a cold, dispassionate state, were asked to predict how they would behave across a range of scenarios when they were sexually aroused, the hot state. These scenarios covered everything from general preferences and ethical boundaries to critical safe sex practices. Later, the same students answered the exact same questions while they were in the hot, aroused state.
Now, what were the biggest disconnects between the cold predictions and the hot reality?
The contrast was just immense. For instance, students predicted a relatively low desire for odd or non-traditional sexual activities in the cold state. But in the hot state, they reported that their desire for these same activities increased by a staggering 72%.
72%. And what about their moral compass?
Well, their propensity for immoral activities, like trying to convince a partner to drink more alcohol than they wanted or engaging in petty theft, increased by 136%.
Wow. They literally became different people, prone to behavior their rational self would condemn.
Precisely. And most critically for public health, despite years of safe sex education and warnings, when they were in that hot state, they were 25% less likely to predict they would use condoms than they predicted when they were calm.
The conclusion is just inescapable. We completely fail to predict the degree to which passion, any intense emotion, really, whether it's lust, hunger, rage, temptation, it just completely overrides our superego and all of our rational planning.
It's terrifying because if we can't reliably understand ourselves in a different emotional state, then all our rational planning, our budgeting, our scheduling, our promises to ourselves, it's all built on sand.
And this gap is the root cause of procrastination. It's essentially giving up long-term goals, saving for retirement, exercising, meeting deadlines, for the immediate, hot gratification of comfort or delay.
We decide today to start the diet tomorrow because today the craving is a hot state demand and the dieting is a cold state goal.
So if willpower is demonstrably unreliable, how do we bridge this hot-cold gap? What's the solution?
The solution is to implement what are called pre-commitment mechanisms when we are in our rational, cold state. This is where behavioral economics offers those free lunches mechanisms that work with our cognitive flaws to help us achieve our goals, rather than relying on the flawed assumption that we have infinite willpower.
Okay, so let's look at some of these practical pre-commitment examples, starting in an academic setting.
Right. In a study on procrastination, MBA students had to submit 3 papers over a semester. One group was given total flexibility, just get them all in by the final deadline.
Okay.
A second group was given one single mandatory final deadline. The third and most interesting group was required to set 3 mandatory binding self-imposed deadlines for themselves at the very start of the semester.
And if they missed a self-imposed deadline,
They got a grade penalty.
And what did those mandatory self-imposed deadlines achieve?
The students who set the binding deadlines for themselves perform significantly better than both the flexible group and the single deadline group. They use their cold state knowledge, I know I will procrastinate, to constrain their future hot state behavior, the urge to delay.
So it's a voluntary restriction of your own freedom in the present for a better outcome in the future.
Exactly. And that concept applies directly to healthcare, where preventative care is so often put off because it's complex and, frankly, unpleasant.
Right, procrastination is rampant for procedures like colonoscopies or even just regular dental visits.
The key, as demonstrated by companies that have simplified complex procedures, is to make the desired behavior incredibly simple and attach consequences or powerful default options.
The example of the Ford Motor Company's maintenance system is a perfect demonstration of this, of simplicity defeating procrastination.
It is. Ford cars historically had like 18,000 potential maintenance tasks, all listed in this complex owner's manual. This led to massive consumer confusion and, inevitably, procrastination. Their service bays were often 40% vacant.
Meanwhile, Honda had streamlined its maintenance into just 3 simple mileage events, A, B, and C. It made it as easy as ordering a value meal.
And when Ford replicated this simplification,
Their service bays filled up immediately.
The insight was that it is behaviorally better to have consumers service their vehicles at somewhat compromised, simplified intervals than for them to procrastinate and not service them at all. Simplicity is a powerful antidote to self-sabotage.
And financially, Ariely proposes using this same pre-commitment idea to curb impulse spending.
Yes, the concept of a customizable self-control credit card. So in your rational, cold state, you would set advance limits on specific spending categories, say $20 a week on coffee, or $600 every 6 months on clothing.
And if you try to go over that limit at the point of sale,
You pre-select your own penalty. It could be having the card rejected.
or taxing yourself.
Exactly. The penalty could be an automatic transfer of $50 to a long-term savings account, or a penalty donation to a charity you dislike. This builds a governor into the system, designed when you are rational, to curb the impulsive consumption that's demanded by your hot state at the moment of temptation. It's an external control for an internal flaw. Our deep dive wouldn't be complete without addressing the sheer power of expectations and subjective beliefs, which can literally change our objective reality. It affects everything from taste to medical efficacy.
This sounds like the purest form of cognitive bias, seeing what we want to see or what we expect to see.
It is, but the effect is far more physical than just a difference of opinion. The power of expectation in shaping our sensory experience is maybe most startlingly shown by the MIT brew experiment. They took a standard beer and they laced it with a couple of drops of balsamic vinegar to create a specialty brew.
That sounds objectively terrible.
Well, the result depended entirely on the timing of the information. If participants were told about the vinegar before they tasted it, they hated it. They wrinkled their noses. They overwhelmingly requested the standard beer instead.
So their expectation, this is going to be gross, literally modified the neural activity, change the taste itself.
It made them agree with their initial assessment. But if they weren't told about the vinegar until after they had finished drinking the beer,
They liked it.
they liked it as much as the people who never knew it had vinegar in it at all. The expectation, when it was delivered too late, couldn't affect the sensory perception that was already established.
So our subjective beliefs and expectations, they don't just frame reality. They literally modify our objective experience of it.
And this leads right into the realm of the placebo effect, where price itself becomes an ingredient.
Okay, so the efficacy of a placebo, in this case a simple vitamin C pill they marketed as Belladone RX, it changed dramatically, based solely on its perceived price.
It did. Participants were subjected to electrical shocks and then asked to rate their pain relief after taking this pill.
What were the price points?
At $2.50 per pill, almost all the participants reported significant pain relief. However, when the price was dramatically discounted to just 10 cents,
Only half of them reported relief.
That's right. So the belief that the pill was expensive and therefore high quality was what drove the biological outcome, not the inert ingredients inside it.
Price drives the placebo effect. You literally get what you pay for, even when what you paid for is chemically inert.
And this was corroborated by another study that found list price, well-known cold medicine yielded significantly better outcomes than discount, generic drugs, even though they contain the exact same active ingredients.
This raises a massive, complex dilemma for healthcare policy. If price truly determines efficacy in a behavioral sense, should we insist on cheap, generic drugs, knowing that the patient's belief in their cheapness might make them functionally less effective?
It's a genuine ethical and financial knot. Behavioral economics suggests that sometimes the perceived cost is the most active ingredient.
Let's pivot from expectations of efficacy to expectations of morality, specifically honesty and non-monetary temptation. The core finding here is it's quite nuanced. The general population is not made up of rampant thieves, but they do cheat systematically, but only just a little bit.
Right. The experiments involved giving students opportunities to cheat on math problems for money. They had conditions where they could self-report their scores and then shred their papers afterward. The key finding was what they called the fudge factor. The majority of people cheated just enough, adding 1 or 2 extra correct answers, to get a small financial gain while still maintaining a positive self-concept of being an honest person.
So we want the benefits of cheating, but we don't want to redefine ourselves as bad people. We only let ourselves cross the ethical line just a little bit.
Exactly. Our internal honesty monitor is a powerful psychological tool, but it only really activates for big, obvious transgressions. We'll stop at a red light at 4 a.m. when no one is around because our superego rewards us for complying with society's large-scale ethics.
But for small, subtle transgressions, the fudge factor, the superego stays asleep. It lets us rationalize the small misdeeds.
And here's where the research gets truly concerning for modern commerce. Dishonesty increases dramatically when the reward is one step removed from cold, hard cash.
The classic communal fridge experiment at MIT illustrates this perfectly. Students would quickly steal cans of Coke from the fridge.
But when the researchers replaced the Cokes with plates of dollar bills, the money was left untouched. Stealing a Coke is one step removed from cash, which makes it easier to rationalize. I'm just taking back the value of a Coke I lost. Or this is basically office supply theft, not real thievery.
But the finding about cheating for tokens, a symbolic, non-monetary currency, is even more definitive.
They repeated the cheating math test, but instead of offering cash rewards, they offered tokens that the students could immediately exchange for cash just outside the lab. When the students were cheating for tokens, the rate of cheating more than doubled compared to cheating for cash directly.
Why?
The symbolic currency creates distance. It allows the participant to rationalize the dishonest act while their conscience stays sound asleep.
So the removal of the direct monetary link removes the moral friction.
It does, and total cheating all the way to the maximum possible also skyrocketed, but only in the token condition. This suggests the rationalization completely disabled the internal monitoring mechanism for a lot of the participants.
This has massive implications for modern business, where so many transactions and rewards happen in non-monetary currencies. Frequent flyer miles, expense reports, stock options, crypto.
We see doctors ordering unnecessary tests because the benefit comes as kickbacks or gifts, not direct cash. We see executives backdating stock options because it's not literally stealing cash from the vault.
And the cost of this collective fudge factor is enormous. It's the cumulative societal cost of millions of small cheats. The slightly exaggerated expense reports, the slightly longer coffee breaks, the small lie on an insurance claim that adds up to billions in lost productivity and fraud.
And external controls aren't enough because we are so good at rationalizing. Ethics reforms, like restricting lobbyists from serving free meals, are circumvented by just repackaging the interaction, inviting politicians to a limited guest list private dinner. The focus has to be internal.
Which leads to the final insight on honesty, how to activate that internal monitor.
The experiments found that participants who were asked to recall the 10 Commandments, or even just to sign an honesty pledge before taking the test, did not cheat at all. At all. They scored exactly the same as the control group where cheating was impossible. It wasn't the religious nature of the commandments themselves, but the mere contemplation of a moral benchmark of some kind that instantly activated the superego and eliminated the fudge factor.
So we need to design systems that force people to contemplate their own moral code immediately before the moment of temptation, whether that's signing a simple honor code or taking an oath.
Or, even better, prohibit situations where personal financial benefit stands in direct opposition to moral standards, like barring consultants from auditing the very companies they consult for. We need to reduce the distance between the unethical act and the cash reward.
This has been a truly comprehensive tour through the systematic failures of human logic. It's a good reminder that we are reliably irrational machines. To wrap up, what's the ultimate takeaway from the perspective of behavioral economics?
I think the ultimate takeaway is one of acceptance and proactive design. Our irrational behaviors are systematic and predictable, and the beautiful thing about that predictability is that it offers what Ariely calls free lunches.
Right. Mechanisms like pre-commitment contracts, self-imposed deadlines, or save more tomorrow programs that work with our cognitive faults to help us achieve our goals rather than assuming we can overcome them purely through unreliable willpower. We have to acknowledge that we are highly susceptible to irrelevant influences, context effects, and short-sightedness. We are not Homo economicus. We are Homo sapiens, flawed, emotional, and predictable.
And these influences affect everyone, from MIT students to seasoned lawyers in consistent ways. The resulting mistakes are simply how we go about our lives. They are part of us, but they don't have to define us if we recognize the pattern.
Okay, let's unpack this one last time, using Ariely's own framing. We are, in many ways, pawns in a game whose forces we largely fail to comprehend. We think we're in the driver's seat making these fully informed, objective decisions, but that perception is often just completely divorced from the reality of the decoys, the anchors, and the zero-cost traps all around us.
Understanding this is the key to critical thinking. When you're faced with a complex choice, you have to force yourself to ask, what arbitrary anchor have I accepted? What decoy is guiding my choice? Am I evaluating this in absolute terms, or merely in relation to the easily comparable option?
And finally, let's revisit the power of expectation and bias. If expectation truly colors our objective reality, as we saw with the vinegar beer and the price-driven placebo effect, how do we ever solve deeply entrenched conflicts? Whether it's political arguments, office disputes, or international disagreements, where both sides read the exact same facts but see entirely different truths.
Well, the study provides a crucial suggestion. Just as tasting the vinegar beer without prior knowledge allowed the true flavor to emerge, the solution to entrenched conflict might be a blind approach.
What do you mean?
Present the facts of the dispute without the affiliation. Reveal what was said or done, but not who said or did it or which group they represent. This type of neutral, external perspective might be the only way to help us move past the bias embedded in our prior expectations and better recognize the truth.
A challenging thought to end on. Identify one arbitrary anchor in your own life. Maybe your willingness to pay for a daily expensive coffee, or a long-standing monthly subscription you have. Ask yourself if that decision, made long ago, is still serving you today, or if it's merely a coherent remnant of a first arbitrary impression.
And if it's not, remember you have the tools now to build a better pre-commitment. Break the anchor, eliminate the arbitrary coherence, and design better defaults for yourself.
Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive. We hope you feel far more equipped to navigate your own predictable irrationality.